Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 7 Part 31 based on novel. So let's start. Shock suddenly arose within Wang Yang's indifferent eyes. However, Lin Dong did not give him much time to be shocked. His eyes were cold as he viciously pressed his golden light wheel onto Wang Yang's body. The golden light wheel slammed heavily against the golden cuticle layer on Wang Yang's body. Sparks instantaneously erupted as an ear-piercing noise frantically rang out. Crack! The sharpness of the golden light wheel had obviously reached a terrifying level. As radiant golden sparks violently shot out, cracks began to appear on the Yuan spirit cuticle that had extremely strong defensive properties. As the cracks appeared, Wang Yang's pupils abruptly contracted. The Yuan spirit cuticle protected him, and it was thanks to it that he was able to survive 3 all-out attacks from 3 different 9 Yuan Nirvana stage experts. Hence, he never imagined that his defensive suit would actually show signs of crumbling due to Lin Dong's attack. Senior brother Wang Yang, it is you who has lost. While a look of disbelief appeared on Wang Yang's face, a somewhat horrifying smile appeared on Lin Dong's bloody face. Bang! After Lin Dong spoke, the Yuan spirit cuticle finally could not resist the sharpness of the dragon Yuan wheel any longer. With a loud bang, it shattered and blasted apart. The golden light quickly dimmed, before withdrawing back into Wang Yang's body. When his Yuan spirit cuticle was shattered, Wang Yuan suddenly lurched to the side, evading the dragon Yuan wheel as it furiously swept past. However, its sharp blade glow flashed past his chest, causing blood trail as fresh blood spurted out. Wang Yang's combat style was indeed very violent and cutthroat. After dodging such a formidable killing blow, his fist flew out at a crafty angle and viciously smashed towards Lin Dong. Bang! Wang Yang's fist heavily landed on Lin Dong's chest. Green light frantically surged at the spot. However, due to the tremendous force from the fist, it caused the blood within Lin Dong's body to violently churn. Heh. In the face of Wang Yang's fist, Lin Dong continued not to evade. He could feel the churning blood within his body. However, he continued to smile. In fact, when coupled with his bloody face, it truly caused one's blood to run cold. Wang Yang was indeed very fearsome and ruthless. This was a point that even Lin Dong had to admit. Even experts that were of the same stage would be intimidated by his risky all-out attacks. However, the style that he used did not achieve his desired effect. It seemed like the viciousness and ruthless within this young man's eyes were only greater than his own. You might be vicious, but he was even more vicious. Therefore, after receiving Wang Yang's fist head-on, Lin Dong used the resultant force to tilt his body. Immediately after, the sole of his foot wriggled strangely as a green glow instantaneously condensed, inflating and turning directly into a green dragon leg. Bang! Green light gushed on the fierce and cold green dragon leg as it shattered the air with a bang. Like a whip, it viciously swept out and landed on Wang Yang's body. Bang! A deep sound echoed as the ground was shattered apart by the resulting force. As for Wang Yang, he flew off like a cannonball, smashing through dozens of gigantic rocks. Vomit! Wang Yang cut a sorry figure as he stabilized himself. In the end, he was no longer able to resist as he vomited a mouthful of fresh blood in front of the shocked gazes of the crowd. Swish! As a mouthful of fresh blood was spat out, the Yuan power within Wang Yang's body instantly turned sluggish. However, before he could recover, he suddenly heard an ear-piercing roar. As the sound increased in volume, Wang Yang's expression immediately changed before he instantly retreated. He lifted his gaze and swiftly glanced at his front. An after-image that was akin to an impertinent raging bull viciously charged towards him with astonishing momentum. There was no semblance of form or style, instead, there was only an extremely vicious to the maximum body slam. The currently Lin Dong had completely regarded his body as a weapon. Although it seemed like he was acting without thinking, it caused one to be terrified of his boldness. Bang! Lin Dong's body collided viciously against Wang Yang's body. A deep sound resounded across the entire arena, causing all the onlookers to hold their breaths. From afar, Ying Huan was clenching her jade-like hands and biting her lips. Although she knew that Lin Dong was extremely fierce and ruthless in a fight, the scene before her thoroughly frightened her. Naturally, it was not only her that felt this way. Even Ying Xiaoxiao, Chen Zhen, and the rest had faces full of astonishment. Right after the collision, the two bodies shot off in opposing directions due to the rebounding force. Their bodies created ditches over 100 meters in length before gradually slowing down. The originally terrifyingly violent auras around them started to turn exceptionally feeble at this moment. Both of them were heavily wounded. The entire arena was silent as they watched the two people struggle in an attempt to stand up. Their hearts could not help but tremble at the sight of the fresh blood that blanketed the ground. This battle was simply too bitter and tragic. Wang Yang struggled for a moment. However, in the end he did not manage to stand up again. He looked up to the sky, fresh blood covering his entire body as he gasped and panted hurriedly, emitting an aura that reeked of blood. Nevertheless, he firmly stared at the figure in the distance from the corner of his eye, who was also struggling to get up. However, the figure had obviously exhausted all his energy, and was also unable to stand up after struggling for a while. "Both of us have lost, you can't defeat me either," Wang Yang mumbled hoarsely from the corner of his mouth. Bang! However, after he spoke, the figure in the distance started to shake, trembling and swaying as he stood up. Fresh blood dripped down from his body and dyed the floor below him red. Lin Dong's face was covered in gashes and the acute pain within his body caused his vision to turn blurry. However, he stubbornly stood up, stubbornly refusing to fall. Turning around, he rocked and swayed as he walked towards Wang Yang under the innumerable gazes from the surroundings. Looking at the man walking step by step on the arena with a smile hanging on his face while completely soaked in blood, Ying Huan's eyes involuntarily reddened. She proceeded to clench her teeth and was about to step forward, when she was stopped by Ying Xiaoxiao. "Don't let all his effort go to waste. Else, senior brother Wang Yang will never admit defeat," Ying Xiaoxiao softly said. Ying Huan bit her lip while tightly clenching her jade-like hands. After a brief struggle, she finally buried her head into Ying Xiaoxiao's shoulder. Right now, she no longer dared to look at the current Lin Dong. She faintly knew about the things that Wang Yang had experienced over the past few years, and those incidents molded him to become a person that could make the hearts of others palpitate from his malevolence and viciousness. However, such viciousness was now completely suppressed by Lin Dong. With that, one could only imagine that the things that Lin Dong had experienced. It was likely that they must have been even more soul-wrenching than Wang Yang. At that time, a person without any backing like him had to face his enemies alone. Enemies that were like wolves and tigers that came from all directions. In the end, he had dragged his exhausted and bloody body as he emerged from that bloody path. When she thought about such a scene, a faint sour feeling arose on Ying Huan's nose. Who could have known the weight of the burden carried by that typically smiling and cheerful young man? Ying Xiaoxiao gently caressed Ying Huan's luxurious hair, before she softly sighed and mumbled, "He truly is a reckless fellow." Crash! Under the innumerable unblinking gazes from all directions, the shaking and swaying Lin Dong picked up the black tree that had shot off from the previous collision. Dragging it along, he proceeded to slowly walk to the front of Wang Yang. Raising the black tree, he placed the sharp steel-like tree branch against Wang Yang. Right now, the thin and slender youth wore a radiant yet amply chilling smile on his face as he said, "Senior brother Wang Yang, you've lost." Leaning against a rock, Wang Yang stared straight at the youth before him. Although the youth was smiling, there was a bone-chilling coldness within those eyes of his. The one before him caused even Wang Yang's vicious heart to feel a chill. Wang Yang stared at Lin Dong for quite a while, before the glare within his eyes started to dim. Lying against the rock, he gasped for a mouthful of air before saying, "The Dao sect has finally managed to produce an outstanding fellow." Lin Dong continued to smile. However, the black tree in front of Wang Yang was not withdrawn. "I've lost." As he wiped off the bloodstains from the corner of his mouth, Wang Yang slowly closed his eyes, before the words that allowed everyone to relax finally sounded out. Wang Yang had admitted defeat. An autumn wind appeared to blow past the messy mountaintop, lifting some stone fragments and withered leaves. Everyone was startled as they looked at Wang Yang, who was leaning against a rock with his eyes shut. A moment later, a somewhat complicated emotion finally surged out from their eyes. Wang Yang had lost, even the current most outstanding younger generation member, Ying Xiaoxiao, lost to him. Yet, he had actually lost. Moreover, the person whom he lost to was a new disciple who had joined the Tao sect for less than a year. This ending was clearly one that no one had predicted. This guy is truly amazing. Many disciples looked at each other and saw the sincere admiration from each other's shock-filled eyes. The Desolate Hall disciples were stunned for a moment, before excitement and pride surfaced on their faces. They were aware that after this battle, the Desolate Hall's position in the Tao sect would definitely be raised. It was likely that no one would dare to casually mock them like before. Who still dared to say that their Desolate Hall was the weakest? In this whole competition, Lin Dong was undoubtedly the most dazzling person. Big sis, he really won. Ying Huanhuan's hands involuntarily tightened when she heard Wang Yang's words. Her large eyes appeared to be filled with joy, as if she had been relieved of a great burden. Ying Xiaoxiao nodded gently, while a smile revealed itself on her quiet and pale face. Although this meant that Lin Dong would obtain the commanding authority during the Great Sect competition, it was still better than letting Wang Yang have it. Lin Dong, it seems like he is someone who does not show off his true capabilities. His various trump cards have shocked others time and time again. Ying Xiaoxiao watched the young man holding a black tree on the stage. The same young man that had forced Wang Yang to admit defeat. Her eyes blinked once before she spoke. Big sis is also very powerful. If not for your soft-heartedness, senior brother Wang Yang might not have been able to defeat you. Ying Huanhuan held Ying Xiaoxiao's wrist and laughed in a lovely manner. Lin Dong's victory had clearly allowed a heavy rock to be lifted from the young lady's heart, allowing her to regain her usual liveliness and energy. Ying Xiaoxiao shook her head and remained non-committal. She did not dwell on this topic. If one was to seriously discuss it, she was indeed not weaker than Wang Yang or Lin Dong. However, she lacked the decisive willingness to kill that the two of them possessed. This was something only those who have experienced countless life and death battles possessed. After a momentary shock, Chen and the rest seated on the tall platform also swiftly recovered. Even with they could not help but smile in relief. He is really someone who surprises others. Chen smiled before he glanced at Ying Xuanzi, who was seated in the middle. The latter's face was still as calm as a quiet lake. However, if one was to observe carefully, it was possible to see a twinkle in his eyes. Clearly, the Tao sect master was extremely satisfied with this result. Announce the result. Chen nodded after hearing Ying Xuanzi's words. He stood up as his gaze swept over the entire place. Following which, a low voice sounded out in a powerful manner, the final victor of this whole competition is Lin Dong from the Desolate Hall. As the champion of the whole competition, he will hold the authority to command all Tao sect disciples during the Great Sect competition. Chen's mighty voice resounded over the mountaintop, sounding out in everyone's ears. After his final word sounded out, a thunderous cheer immediately erupted over the mountaintop. Those gazes that gathered on him were filled with great respect. After this fight, Lin Dong's reputation had undoubtedly reached the peak amongst the Tao sect younger generation members. Phew! Lin Dong let out a sigh upon hearing the cheering that enveloped the mountain. He flipped his hand and kept his black tree in his bag. After which, he raised his head and looked towards the tall platform as he laughed. Teacher Uncle Chen, I think it is better to hand the commanding authority back to senior sister Xiao Xiao. I am not adept in such matters. Although commanding the Tao sect's disciples to engage in a bloody fight during the Great Sect competition seemed quite cool and prestigious, Lin Dong clearly understood that he was used to being alone. Something like commanding others was thus considered as a weakness of his. Hence, he did not want to get everyone else into trouble because of him. Outside of the arena, when Ying Xiaoxiao heard these words, she was startled. On the other hand, Ying Huanhuan smilingly said, "What a tactful person." Ying Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes and said, "Weren't you terribly worried about him earlier? Yet, you are speaking in such a tough manner now." Ying Huanhuan was silenced by these words to the point whereby her face turned completely red. She hurriedly shrunk her head back bitterly and did not dare to speak any more. On the tall platform, Chen Zhen was also startled by Lin Dong's words. He immediately turned his head to look at Ying Xuanzi. The latter mused for a moment before nodding. If one was to really discuss this issue, Ying Xiaoxiao was indeed the most suitable candidate. Although Lin Dong was cautious, that was on the precondition that his baseline was not touched. Anything could happen during the Great Sect competition. Should any unforeseen situation occur, there was no guarantee that he would not lose control. Since you have taken the initiative to propose this, we will do as you say and hand the commanding authority to Ying Xiaoxiao. Additionally, according to the rules, the champion of the whole competition will receive a reward. You should rest for 1 to 2 days first. Once you have recovered, head to the sect master's place. Chen Zhen finally turned around and spoke smilingly towards Lin Dong. The former's eyes were full of praise. Lin Dong did not act arrogantly despite his success. Instead, he took the initiative and handed this important commanding authority back to Ying Xiaoxiao. His actions would likely cause even Ying Xuanzi, who appeared impassive on the surface, to think a little higher of Lin Dong within his heart. There is a reward? Lin Dong lifted his brows. This was something that he was interested in. Given Ying Xuanzi's status, it was likely that his reward would be quite substantial, no? Wang Yang's expression was a little indifferent as he unsteadily stood up on the stage. After which, he picked up his broadsword, turned around and left without saying anything. His back was so lonely that it caused one's heart to ache. Ying Xiaoxiao and Ying Huan gazed at his back. The smiles that had just appeared on their faces involuntarily dimmed a little. No matter how one put it, they felt a great gratitude towards this person, who had taken care of them like a big brother back then. Senior brother Wang Yang. Lin Dong suddenly spoke while everyone was sadly staring at Wang Yang's back. You have already won. What else is there to say? Wang Yang paused without turning his head around and replied in an indifferent tone. I also dislike the people from the Yuan Gate. If there is a chance during the Great Sect competition, perhaps we can cooperate with each other. I wonder if senior brother Wang Yang is interested. Lin Dong smiled a little as he asked. Lin Dong knew that the Great Sect competition was likely going to be extremely dangerous and their Dao sect would also end up crossing paths with the Yuan Gate. At that time, Wang Yang's strength might be of great help. Furthermore, the Dao sect also needed such a strong disciple. Wang Yang was startled. He slowly turned his head and watched Lin Dong's smiling face. A long while later, his face, which did not even reveal any expression despite having fought with Lin Dong until both suffered great injuries, appeared to have the desire to smile. However, that smile ultimately did not appear. All he did was nod his head slowly towards Lin Dong. When the time comes, I'll kill whoever you ask me to. Additionally, you did well. Xiao Xiao is indeed the best candidate. It's just that I am not as magnanimous as you. Wang Yang's somewhat dark and gloomy voice was transmitted over. Immediately, he turned around and left. Lin Dong could not help but grin when he saw this. Wang Yang might be obstinate and antisocial, but on the whole, he was not as dislikable as one imagined. Lin Dong sent Wang Yang off with his eyes. After which, he stretched his waist. As his mood relaxed, the pain and tiredness that he had forcefully suppressed earlier swiftly surged over his body like floodwaters. That powerless sensation caused Lin Dong to find it difficult to even lift his arm. Lin Dong laughed bitterly when he sensed this powerless feeling within his body. In terms of intensity, this big battle was likely even more intense than the one with Yao Ling. Fortunately, Lin Dong's strength had been risen substantially compared to back then. Therefore, he did not wind up seriously injured and unconscious for 10 days like before. It is finally over. Although Lin Dong was exhausted, there was a relieved smile on his face. Immediately, he heaved a solemn sigh of relief within his heart. He raised his head and looked at the distant azure sky. It appeared as though the clouds were lingering there, encroaching towards this place at an extremely slow speed. Great Sect competition. Yuan Gate, I'm really looking forward to seeing just how overbearing you can be at that time. The corners of Lin Dong's mouth slowly lifted into an arc that was as cold as a blade. He really looked forward to the arrival of that day. The whole competition that shocked the entire Tao sect finally ended as the sun set. Countless Tao sect's disciples carried some remnant shock in their hearts together with some dissatisfaction as they scattered and left. This whole competition had many twists and turns. First, Ying Xiaoxiao was unexpectedly defeated by Wang Yang. Just when everyone thought that Wang Yang would successfully come out on top, Lin Dong came knocking. In a fearsome and ruthless manner, he defeated Wang Yang in front of the countless number of shocked onlookers and became the most dazzling individual in this whole competition. The continuous plot twists during this competition completely caught everyone off guard. At the same time, it caused everyone to be excited. Lin Dong's and Wang Yang's intense fight caused one's scalp to turn numb, while their hearts could not help but burn with passion. That battle will undoubtedly become one of the classics in the history of the whole competition. Lin Dong eventually obtained victory. However, he voluntarily gave up the commanding authority to Ying Xiaoxiao. His move caused many disciples to feel shock and admiration in their hearts. After all, not everyone would be able to perform such a feat. This also allowed Lin Dong's soaring reputation to finally reach its peak, and it now even showed signs of surpassing the senior disciples like Ying Xiaoxiao and Wang Yang. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed since the whole competition. Although 3 days had passed, the interior of the Tao sect was still tirelessly spreading word of the exciting battles during the whole competition. The fiery hot atmosphere had yet to die down. During these 3 days, the injuries within Lin Dong's body were also completely healed. Although he had been greatly exhausted during that intense fight, it was fortunate that he did not suffer many inner injuries. With Lin Dong's powerful physical body, most of his injuries healed within 3 days and he would no longer be burdened by them. While Lin Dong was recuperating, the desolate hall continued to stay in a lively and heated state. Quite a number of disciples raised their heads and puffed out their chests when they walked. This was the first time that their desolate hall had emerged victorious during the whole competition in 100 years. Hence, it was reasonable for them to feel proud. Lin Dong was seated on a green rock on a quiet mountain within the desolate hall. His eyes were shut tightly as yuan power rippled around him, before tunneling into his body bit by bit. After this silent training continued for around 2 hours, a soft rushing wind sound was suddenly heard. Lin Dong's tightly shut eyes also slowly opened as he looked to his front. An elderly figure was rushing over from that direction. It was Wu Dao. "You have almost made a complete recovery, right?" Wu Dao landed beside Lin Dong and smilingly asked. "Yes, I'm almost completely healed." Lin Dong smiled and nodded. "This time around, your performance is quite spectacular. Ha ha, right now, the tales of those little brats from the desolate hall are almost reaching the heavens." Wu Dao smiled. Immediately, his eyes turned to look at the young man in front. A pleased expression was present in his eyes. He had personally brought Lin Dong into the Tao sect. Moreover, Lin Dong had joined his desolate hall. Hence, he could be considered to have watched Lin Dong's rise step by step, from a new disciple to the strongest younger generation member in the Tao sect. Lin Dong laughed. The desolate hall had been suppressed by the other 3 halls for so many years, and they now finally had the opportunity for release. Acting a little arrogant was harmless after all. Our desolate hall has become much livelier during these past few days. The disciples from the other 3 halls would occasionally come over. It is likely that most of them want to pay you a visit. Additionally, that girl Huan has also came over a couple of times. However, you have been training in isolation for the past few days. It seems like she is a little unhappy, Wu Dao smilingly said. Lin Dong smiled. He could imagine that girl continuously muttering that haughty jerk or other similar words. "Since you have almost made a complete recovery, follow me to the sect master's residences. As the champion of the whole competition, it is likely that the sect master will give you quite a reward," Wu Dao said. Lin Dong's eyes brightened when he heard this. He was a practical person. Compared to the so-called reputation, he was naturally more interested in obtaining something that would truly boost his strength. When Wu Dao saw Lin Dong's reaction, he involuntarily chided him. After which, he ceased speaking anything further. Promptly, he waved his hand, turned around and left, while Lin Dong hurriedly followed. Lin Dong followed Wu Dao to a quiet mountain deep within the Dao sect before landing on it. That mountain did not possess any large magnificent halls. Instead, all it had was a bamboo house. A leisurely aura spread over, causing one's tensed heart to relax. The sect master is waiting for you inside. Head in. Wu Dao pointed at the bamboo house and said. Lin Dong nodded. He took a step forward before pushing the door and casually entered. The lighting within the bamboo house was gentle, and there was a bamboo table at the front, where a white-robed Ying Xuanzi was quietly seated. His face was like a piece of jade, while his aura like the ocean, deep and unfathomable. Disciple Lin Dong greets sect master. Even someone as proud as Lin Dong felt some respect in his heart towards him. Therefore, he halted his footsteps, cupped his hands together and said, Take a seat. Ying Xuanzi raised his head and smiled gently towards Lin Dong. He pointed towards the mat in front of him and said. Lin Dong did not stand on ceremony as he walked forward and sat down. However, his body was extremely straight. This time around, I have to thank you. Ying Xuanzi's eyes had a twinkle as he stared at the young man in front and said. I am also a disciple of the Dao sect. I think that these matters are also considered part of my duty, right? Lin Dong spread his hand and smilingly said. Regarding Wang Yang, back then, our Dao sect did let him down. Therefore, there are many matters that are inconvenient for us to intervene in. All we can do is to allow him to act as he pleases. Of course, the reason I wish to thank you is not because you stopped him, but because you handed the commanding authority over to Xiao Xiao. Ying Xuanzi smilingly said. Both you and Wang Yang are not weaker than Xiao Xiao. If it really comes to a life and death battle, the both of you are naturally the best candidates. However, there are also many other issues to consider during the great sect competition. In this aspect, Xiao Xiao should perform better than the both of you. Lin Dong nodded. He was in complete agreement with that assessment as well. Ying Xuanzi looked at Lin Dong. The corners of his mouth contained a gentleness as he softly said, I am aware of your past and I know that you hold many secrets that even I might not be aware of. I do not mind. This is because, like I mentioned before, regardless of what happens, you are currently a disciple of the Dao sect. As long as you do not do something to harm the Dao sect, this sect will ultimately stand behind you. Lin Dong was slightly startled as warmth flowed within his heart. He immediately lowered his head slowly and said, This disciple understands. All right, I should first give you your reward. Ying Xuanzi smiled before he promptly waved his sleeve. 3 rays of light shot out from his sleeve, before suspending themselves in the air. These 3 objects are all extraordinary items. You can pick any one of them. Lin Dong raised his head curiously when he heard Ying Xuanzi's words, before he stared at air. There were 3 clusters of light there. The first cluster of light appeared to contain a small fiery red ruler. The ruler was covered in flame-like patterns and there was faint heat wildly spreading from it. From its appearance, it appeared to be a soul treasure that was even more powerful than his black dragon sky-roaring seal. The second item was a black armor the size of a human head. Wave after wave of black chi seeped out from within it and lingered over its surface like a snake. This was a defensive soul treasure that Lin Dong had never owned before. Both of these items were clearly extraordinary objects. The auras emitted by them clearly indicated that they were high-grade heavenly soul treasures. If they were placed in the outside world, it would definitely attract a scuffle. Lin Dong also coveted these 2 items. However, he did not make his decision immediately. Instead, his eyes turned towards the last cluster of light. The last light cluster was a black palm-sized wooden tablet. The wooden tablet appeared to have some blurry symbols on it. However, compared to the previous 2 items, this wooden tablet seemed much more ordinary. However, it was precisely because of how ordinary this item appeared that it ended up causing Lin Dong to frown. Due to his mental energy, he had quite keen senses. Hence, he could vaguely sense that there was a relatively peculiar fluctuation from the wooden tablet. That fluctuation actually caused his heart to palpitate for a moment. How? Have you made up your mind? Ying Xuanzi asked with a gentle smile as he watched Lin Dong, who had knitted his brows and fell into deep thought. Lin Dong's eyes flickered. The small fiery red ruler and the black armor were clearly extremely practical. After all, high-grade heavenly soul treasure was much more powerful compared to his black dragon sky-roaring seal. If he could obtain either of them, it would likely boost his fighting strength significantly. However, the black wooden tablet, it was just like a cat's paw scratching Lin Dong's heart, causing his eyes to uncontrollably look over. Forget it. Consider myself unlucky if I make the wrong choice. Lin Dong hesitated for a moment, before he finally sighed helplessly. After which, his finger pointed towards the wooden tablet that was wrapped by a cluster of light and made his choice. I want that. His words had barely faded when a faint trace of shock flashed across Ying Xuanzi's eyes. This video will end here.